All right, so I get asked a lot on stream, what do I think the future of Hearthstone Classic should be? Should they introduce some of the older expansions again, right? Go to Nax, go to Blackrock Mountain, GVG, things like that. Or should they just leave it at Classic? So I want to talk a bit about that today. One, what I think they should do. Two, what I realistically think they'll do. And then three, what is the community's role in all of this? So first of all, do I think something should happen? Should they go beyond Classic in any sense? I think yes. I think even if they just go ahead, add Nax and just kind of roll out those old expansions, I think that's going to have a little more longevity and overall just be better for the Classic players. I think they're going to enjoy that just for a longer amount of time, but that is not my ideal situation. So ideally, if it was up to me, I was in control, had all these resources from Blizzard, what would I do? Well, I'd like to see something that is more branded as like old school Hearthstone. So not necessarily just the classic set, the cards that we're playing with now, but also have some of the earlier expansions rolled out. However, I'd like them to have a ladder that restricts some of the cards that exist there. So for example, they could ban some of the cards that we don't maybe enjoy playing against now, stuff that they've nerfed already in Standard. So stuff like Leroy, Combo Druid, right? They took Rag out. People don't like playing against Doomguard. Even stuff like Alexstrasza, potentially. Lots of people have it in their decks. If you were to say that you couldn't put it in, how would that shake up the meta? So what would that look like? Well, let's just think about this thought experiment for a minute. If we had a ladder that said, well, you had to build your deck using, in this case, let's say only classic cards, but you could only have up to 4 cards per each mana cost. So 0, 1, 2, whatever. You could only have 4 in each one of those spots. Well, now the deck building process is going to look a lot different. So could you have Zoo? Probably not very effectively, because there's not going to be a lot of good 1 and 2 drops, right? Normally you have like 12 2 drops. So if you don't have Zoo, well then what's going to succeed? Suddenly things like Paladin that struggle to get to the mid game, the late game, now they're going to be more viable, and maybe that pushes out some of the Control Warrior players. And you could just see how putting in these restrictions would change how we go about the meta, the deck building process, and I think it would keep things fresh, even though it's just using those old cards. So if we had those kinds of restrictions, those kinds of bans rolled out weekly, similar to Tavern Brawl, there's like a weekly set of restrictions, and still keep the ladder there for the span of a month, that would be my ideal situation. I think it just keeps the game fresh. Even though it's cards that we've already seen, it would be a completely different meta. There'd be less net decking because you'd be forced to actually go and try out these new things. Even if it is something that you take from online, maybe you see a streamer or something like that, the meta is going to shift in a week anyway. So you'd see a lot more fluctuations there. And what I think that does as well is it serves these players who like a different kind of Hearthstone. I think players who really enjoy Classic right now enjoy a much different game than what we're seeing today. The cards are simpler, a little more streamlined. You're actually restricted more. There's just a different sense of play about it that I don't think you get from modern Hearthstone. And so I think in those earlier expansions like Nax, Blackrock Mountain, GVG, I think those still fit that old style, that old classic style. Even though there's some cards in there maybe we don't like playing with as much, maybe those would need to be, banned, or we go through kind of restrictions on those as well. I think it's serving the same audience. So from Blizzard's perspective as well, I could see why they would actually want to do something like this. I know why they wouldn't do it for your typical standard mode now, because as they introduce new cards, they want everyone to get all the cards, right? They wouldn't want to ban them. They wouldn't want players getting new cards and then being like, what do you mean I can't use them? That's not in the best interest of the players. I don't think it's not in the best interest of Blizzard. They're going to get less money. But right now, it's my understanding that in Wild, a lot of those really old sets don't have a lot of playable cards because there has been power creep over time. And yes, they've tried to rebalance some of those cards, but a lot of them just don't fit in. So from Blizzard's perspective, they really don't have a way to get people to spend money on these older sets. Now, if suddenly you're rotating things in, you're saying, 10 cards from your deck have to be from Nax, or, you've got to use these cards from Blackrock Mountain. Well, if you've got to use those things, then you've got a reason to go and buy those old packs, which is going to generate money for them. It's going to keep players interested, and then you'll kind of have another separate player base, just like they've got a player base for all the different kinds of modes they have now. Different players for Wild, different players for Standard, and now different players for Classic. But what do I realistically think they'll do? Do I think they'll do anything even close to that? No, I don't think so. I think realistically they'll do one of two things. They either won't touch it again, they'll just leave it as Classic as it is right now, or they'll roll out the expansions slowly, probably around the same cadence that they're rolling out new expansions, right? I believe it's every 3 or 4 months, something like that. They would put out, Nax and then GVG, probably in the same order that they were released, kind of thing. But I do think that that's going to be dictated by player engagement and feedback. They've already come out and said for Diablo 2 Resurrected that they're leaving it kind of open-ended as to whether they're going to add any more new content. Are they going to balance skills? Are they going to add new areas, new items, anything like that? They said, well, we're not going to touch the game for now, but if there's a high demand for it, a large player base, we get that kind of feedback, then we're open to the idea of implementing those things. And it's been very vague communication as of now, but really it's in their best interest to make their player base happy, right? If they're going to get money from this venture, then of course they're going to do it. So for sure, if you're thinking that it would be better for them to roll this stuff out or to do something different, let them know. And that's what I really want to get into. What is the community's role in all of this? I think whether it's the same as mine or it's a different opinion, do you think it should stay as Classic? Do you think they should roll out the expansions? Do you think they should do something where they, limit the deck building options for players and have some sort of ladder like that? Any one of those, post it on Reddit, Blizzard forums, email them directly, whatever. I think it's really important that if you feel strongly one way or another, that you're putting that forward, because I think the community has a lot of power, and right now I just don't see a lot of talk about it, at least not outside of my stream when people are asking questions, but people do seem to have some pretty strong opinions on the matter. So I do think that that's really important. I really encourage people to do that. From my perspective, what I'm going to do, if there's interest in it, now this is, there's no ETA on it, there's no plans in the works at the moment, but I'm hoping sometime during this month probably, we'll start doing some community hosted tournaments using the format that I was just talking about. So, we'd probably start with Classic and maybe put in some deck building restrictions. Maybe there's no Leroy, maybe you can only have certain cards at whatever mana cost, that kind of thing. And, we'll cast it, we'll invite anyone who, whether you're good at the game, you're not good at the game, it's going to force you to build decks all on your own. And yeah, if there's interest in it, I just want to get as much of that into the community, into people's eyes, see what they think of it, at least to try it out. And if it's successful, we'll keep doing it. Now, I don't think there's going to be any kind of significant prize pool with this kind of thing. I'm don't even have the ability to get subs at the moment on Twitch, so I couldn't even gift those, but it would probably be something at that level. I'd like to give something to the winners if we could. And I think we'll be using Discord to communicate that kind of thing going forward. So if you are interested, please let me know in the comments, Discord, wherever, and then I'll go forward in building that, gathering the players who are going to participate. And as well, if you've got ideas for what those deck building restrictions should be, I'd also love to hear those. I can build a list of those, whether it's something that we would do right away, something we'd hold until a future tournament. Have people vote on them. If you have a good idea and people are going to comment on it here on YouTube or somewhere else, then of course, we'll in our little community, try to make Classic and some of the older expansions with the older card design still kind of thrive as much as we possibly can. But again, just want to end it on, I think if you're a community member that has a strong opinion one way or another on this, I highly encourage you to share it with Blizzard as much as you can. Talk with other people in the community. Just get the word out. And, hopefully we have a classic or old school format that we all enjoy playing, something that we can use to keep it all alive.